Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, May 7th, 2015. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, homebrewer James Sites joins us to share a couple of experimental brews blending cider with sour beers. Steve Wilkes helps me taste and evaluate. If you're new to homebrewing and would like to get into the hobby for the first time, check out our website, basicbrewing.com, where you can find archives of our audio and video podcasts and our DVDs to walk you through basic and more advanced brewing techniques. You can find me on Twitter. My username is Basic Brewing, all one word. We also have a Basic Brewing Radio and Basic Brewing video page on Facebook at facebook.com/basicbrewing. We're on the Google Plus, too. Thanks again to everybody clicking on the Amazon.com associate link on our basicbrewing.com site. You know how it works. Whenever you think of shopping at Amazon.com, go to our website first, basicbrewing.com. Click on the ad on the right-hand side of the page, and that'll take you back to Amazon where you can shop as you normally do. You won't notice any difference, but we will, because we'll get a commission of what you buy. So you'll be helping us to bring you this show. It won't cost you any extra. We greatly appreciate your support. We also have associate links for Brew Your Own magazine and the American Homebrewers Association on our site as well. You can find your Basic Brewing iPhone app on iTunes, our Android app on Amazon.com. We have a Windows Phone app. We're on the BlackBerry podcast directory and we're on the Stitcher app as well. If you want to put a tip in our tip jar, some coinage in our guitar case, you can go to basicbrewing.com/support, and thanks to everybody who's done so already. I had fun this past weekend down at the Home Brewery in Fayetteville, Arkansas. That was this past Saturday, as members of FLOPS, that's Fayetteville Lovers of Pure Suds, brewed up a couple of pale ales for the AHA Big Brew. There was an all-grain beer and an extract beer as well, and we had some passersby who wandered up to take a look at the brewing process firsthand and smell it, and get some information on how to brew, and that was really cool. And there's nothing like the smell of beer brewing, especially on a beautiful day as Saturday was. And I tweeted a couple of pics of that and posted them on our Facebook page as well, so you can look at those. And afterwards, some of us went down to a Fossil Cove Brewery where they have a sour wurted Berliner Weiss on tap that is really nice, or at least they did at the time. It may be gone by the time you hear this. And I can't tell you, I'm excited that sour beer is being brewed here locally in Northwest Arkansas. And also, speaking of Northwest Arkansas, here's a note. Fayetteville Foam Fest will be this Saturday, and that kicks off the first ever Northwest Arkansas Beer Week. Holy smokes, we're coming along. Several venues and breweries around the area are taking part with various events, so that should be a lot of fun. And I'm planning to go to Foam Fest Saturday in Fayetteville, and you can find out that's from like 5 to 9, I think, in Fayetteville. You can find out more about that at FayettevilleFoamFest.com. And I may try to get some interviews with the local brewers about fun beers that they're going to have on tap there. I know that Nathan up at Core said that they're going to have some really interesting stuff on tap just for that event. And also there will be a VIP Brewers Ball for the first time on May 15th in association with the Fayetteville Foam Fest. So I'll find out more about that. And a portion of the proceeds from Foam Fest will benefit the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. So you have fun, and a portion of the proceeds will be helping out a good cause. So there you go. Let's take a quick look into the mailbag. Shannon from Prince Edward Island up there in Canada wrote asking for details about my cream ale recipe. And he says, I've noticed that when I plug the ingredients into Beersmith, it says that according to the cream ale profile, that much Saaz hops for bittering is too much. 2 ounces for a 5-gallon batch given the range. It says 1.5 fits better. Should I really be sticking to profile ranges versus what a recipe suggests? Keep in mind that I have no hop knowledge. I'm certainly not suggesting Beersmith knows more than you do, of course. You made the recipe and know how it tastes after all, and of course I don't. I'm in the middle of learning how to construct recipes, so the profiles mean everything to me at the moment. So, how many of you can predict what I'm going to say next? As I pull up my soapbox here, first of all, I got to say that the hops that I used were only 4.8% alpha acid, so half an ounce probably isn't going to make that much of a difference in 5 gallons. If we were talking about a hop with, say, 14% alpha acid, then you're talking about a dramatic change. So I plugged in the numbers, and I went ahead and put the 2 full ounces in at 60 minutes because truth is I didn't want to waste that last half an ounce, because often what happens if I measure half an ounce from a 1 ounce pouch, I'll fold it over and I'll put it in a baggie or whatever. I'll put it in the freezer and I'll forget about it and it'll go to waste. So I figured it's not going to make that much of a difference, so I just put in the full 2 ounces. Turned out it was tasty, and I've made the recipe several times now, and I like it a lot, and my friends like it. And to me, it doesn't matter if it doesn't fit into the tidy box of the style guidelines. You know me. I use those as guidelines, but if my beer doesn't exactly fit into the little pigeonhole, it doesn't matter to me. So if you've listened to the show for a while, as I said, you know what I'm going to say. The little sliders on the brewing software are fine for giving you a general idea of where you want to be if you're looking to hit a certain style. It's a good place to start. Or if you're learning to formulate recipes, they're good indicators of kind of the ballpark of where you want to be. But if you are chained to them to a point that you believe the little automated software indicators over the opinion of another brewer who has actually brewed the recipe multiple times, then you need to loosen those chains. Or if you're tweaking a recipe so much to fit those little sliders that you're putting in little bits of this and little bits of that just to make the algorithms happy and to fit into the little box there, I think that you may be missing out. That being said, if chasing the sliders makes you happy and that's the way you want to go, then go that way. Homebrewing is all about doing what you want to do and what makes you happy, and you don't have to listen to me if you don't want to. So I don't mean to pick on Shannon. It is intimidating when you start to create your own recipes, and you really don't want to screw up because it's a fair amount of work to brew a batch of beer. But, in the end, beer is pretty forgiving. And as long as you don't dramatically screw up a recipe or dramatically deviate from the recipe, you're still probably going to brew some tasty beer. And you might just have a happy accident along the way and discover something that you like better than the style guidelines. So, anyway, Shannon, do what you want to do. What you might want to do is do an experiment. Brew the recipe my way, one batch, and then brew the recipe, that fits the sliders, fits into the style guideline box according to the brewing software. See if you can tell a difference. Do some experiments with your friends, do some triangle tests to see if they can pick out the odd sample. See which one you like better. And if you like the one that fits better into the style guidelines, great. Brew that again. But please, if you do that, let me know, because I would love to hear about it. Because maybe I'll learn something too. Maybe I should be putting 1.5 ounces instead of 2. Well, let's talk. So now I have to climb off the soapbox now. That's or maybe I should be using a beer box instead of a soapbox. But let's talk about our sponsor, Desiree and Dave of High Gravity in Tulsa. You've heard me talk about the system that I have, the electric brew-in-a-bag single vessel system. And if you've gone to youtube.com/high-gravity-brew, you've seen Steve and me brew on that. But did you know that High Gravity also makes 3-tier electric brewing systems? In fact, the Build Your Own Electric Brewing System feature at highgravitybrew.com lets you customize your system to fit your needs. High Gravity offers systems that can brew 5 gallons all the way up to 2 barrels. You can choose from a variety of controllers that control your heat and pumps, and you can pick the one that's right for you. Check that out at highgravitybrew.com. And while you're on there, for ingredients and many other products, remember that High Gravity offers $7.99 flat rate shipping. So check all that out at our friends at highgravitybrew.com. Okay, you may remember James Sites from when he sent us some sour beer /wine hybrids a while back, and Steve and I enjoyed them quite a bit and thought that they broke some new ground, at least for us, in what we expect from beer and wine. So we were happy when James said that he was sending some sour beer/cider hybrids for us to check out. James Sites, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
Hey, James. Thanks for having me again.
We had you on a while back. I'm sure it seems like just yesterday, but I'm sure it was like years ago probably.
About 6 months, yeah.
I've lost all concept of time. But we had you on before doing a hybridization between sour beers and wine. And now we're back together and we're talking about cider with sour beer hybridization. So talk about the inspiration for these experiments and talk kind of in general about what you're doing.
Well, it seemed like the next logical step. If I was going to do something with wine, then why not do something with cider as well? And both of these beers that we'll eventually talk about, they didn't really happen on purpose, I guess, if that makes sense. They started as something different and sort of morphed into the end product as we went along with it. So I didn't purpose brew these beers, if that makes sense. Like the wine projects, they were both purpose brewed. I mean, they, from soup to nuts, turned out like I wanted them to, if that makes sense. These beers, they started out as different animals and either got, certain ingredients or they got different techniques going along with it.
Now, you call these beers when you combine a certain percentage of honey with beer, you get a braggot.
Yes.
But is there a category out there that is already named for these things that are ciders combined with beers?
I think, again, that these particular projects, we'll say, really defy classification. There's no specific, we'll say, BJCP category that they're going to fall into, besides like experimental beer or something like that. There are certain bits and pieces of different categories in there. And I think, sort of like you guys had said, they are, if you're not told what they are in the beginning, you might not even pick up some of the subtle nuances.
Well, they were both tasty. You sent us two samples,
mm-hmm.
And we'll get into the tasting with Steve here in a minute. But let's talk of the details about the first one. It's called All Things Nice. First of all, where did the title come from?
Just the apple cider and the fruit. It just there seemed like a lot of sweet things in it. I just remembered that nursery rhyme, I guess. What girls are made of.
Oh.
And it seemed very appropriate for the end product.
So what have we got going in? How did this? You didn't do it on purpose. So how did it evolve?
So what it ended up happening? It started as a clean beer. It started as a braggot with second runnings, and then I added some clover honey and the raspberry apple cider, fermented that with Chico yeast to completion. And then what happened with it is I racked the sour beer off of the cherries that it had been sitting on for a couple months and racked half of this beer onto those cherries.
And so along with the clean, so you start off with a clean beer and then put it on the cherries from the sour beer. So in those cherries, did you have your own house sour culture? Is that what the
Exactly.
souring agent was?
Exactly. And because the braggot, because it was second runnings, I didn't bitter that at all because braggots, they're sort of a loose definition for, what they are. They can be beer and mead blended post fermentation. They can be beer that has honey added to it. They can be hopped. They can be unhopped. So I decided to make this one unhopped. So there was nothing in that beer besides the alcohol content, which was, I would say, not low, but on the low side of, we'll say, normal, on the low side of maybe what we would call session. So the lactobacillus wasn't inhibited by the IBUs because there were none.
So no hops at all.
No.
So I guess we could throw the title "Gruit" at it too.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a beer that has honey in it, which makes it a braggot, and then which has cider in it as well, and then it has raspberries, which makes it a fruit beer too, and then there's no hops, which makes it a gruit as well.
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to hit all the bases.
Yeah, as many styles as possible.
And then, so in what shape were the black cherries after they had been, after the previous beer had been sitting on them? Did you taste those, or what did they look like? Or
actually, they held up surprisingly well, and I was surprised that most of the color in that beer, it comes out as, I guess I would say, maybe dark pink or light red. Most of it came from the cherries.
Yeah, I don't think we talked too much about the color
appearance. No,
of the
not
beer.
much.
But very interesting. I mean, we certainly didn't miss the hops. And in a sour beer, hops are going to take a back seat generally anyway.
Absolutely.
Well, very, very interesting. How long did it sit on the cherries?
2 months, 8 weeks. No, so not exactly 2 months, but right around there.
So it got sour fairly quickly then.
Very quickly. I was very surprised by this beer and how quickly it changed character, because if you taste it side by side, now obviously there are cherries in it and some souring organisms, as well as Brettanomyces, but if you taste it side by side with the base braggot, I mean, they're completely different animals.
In what way?
It almost seems like they aren't the same base beer.
Well, it was tasty. I can tell you that much. Do we need to mention anything else before we go into Steve and my tasting of it?
No, not at all. That should cover it.
Okay. Well, let's go back a day in time to Steve's house when we're sampling the first beer called All Things Nice. Well, Steve Wilkes, here we are in your house.
Yeah, we are, aren't we?
Studio, whatever this is, Studio East.
Studio East.
And we are tasting James Sites sour beer / cider hybrids. And they are two different beverages. Let's start with the first one, All Things Nice, which is Maris Otter, red wheat, clover honey, apple and raspberry cider, and black cherries.
Boy.
So a blend of a clean apple cider braggot. So if I'm reading this properly, an apple cider braggot that had black cherries added that had been in a previous sour beer. So you're I need to find another word for impressions.
Yeah, I won't do that anymore.
But what are your impressions?
Well, I really quite like this beer. I can taste the cherries. It's sour as it's supposed to be. I'm curious about how he made the braggot, because you can make a braggot by blending a beer, and in this case a cider, I suppose, or I guess you could brew the braggot with. I'm trying to think. So if my wort was using apple juice, see where I'm going with this? The dragon with the flagon is the
the vessel with the pestle.
The vessel with the pestle. So that's a question I would have for him. But But my general impression of this is it's quite nice. I mean, it's nicely carbonated, though not as carbonated as the other example, which we'll get to. But I can really taste the cherries. I can taste the sour. It reminded me a little bit of La Folie, as you'll gasp, I'm sure, when I say that, but it really did. And I guess it's just the sourness and maybe the general character of the flavor. And I really like the ingredients that are in it. It just sounds so pleasant and summery.
Yeah, I'm not gasping at all. There are notes. There's the sourness, which it's fairly sour, which so is La Folie. But then there are some kind of darker notes underneath that I guess is coming from the black cherries.
It's one of my favorite bands.
The Black Cherries?
Yeah.
They're on tour, I think.
I think they are.
They're opening for Jefferson Starship. Or it's just Starship now.
Well, I don't know,
or maybe it's just Ship.
Yeah, it's just Ship.
They keep shortening their name.
It's just Dingy.
Yeah, soon it'll be Boat. Life preserver. But I'm going to take another sip. Phil here while I'm sampling.
Well, okay. So anyway, I was born, back in Alabama in the old days. Now, this is a wonderful beer. I've sampled way more of mine than you have, so I'm not sure what that says, but it's very drinkable.
Because I've been talking.
Is it would you call this a beer? I don't know what you call this.
Well, I don't know. It's another new thing. It's you would call a mead or a beer with a certain amount of honey as a braggot.
Right.
But I don't know what you would call a beer with a certain amount of cider. That's a different thing.
I don't know.
And then to put the sour thing in there is another thing altogether.
In this digital age, maybe you call it a cyber. I don't know. Tweet that out.
My taste buds are tweeting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can taste the cherries. You can taste the malt. You can taste. I don't know. Do you get some apple? Do you get the cider?
I don't
part?
get a little green apple in this. This is one time.
Well, that don't rain in Minneapolis in the summertime.
Actually, I really don't taste any apple.
Yeah, I guess that's the one thing.
I would not say that, if you just poured me one of these and said, here, drink this, what was it made of? I would not have guessed it was made with apple juice.
It's got apple and raspberry cider. So I guess we're probably tasting raspberries along with the cherries to kind of have that berry kind of flavor.
Yeah.
But yeah, the apple flavor probably gets overpowered in the mixture.
I think so. The Barry Manilow flavor doesn't. The Barry Goldwater flavor, if you're conservative.
Oh, Mandy. That's what you call it.
Oh, Mandy. That's the name of this.
Oh, Mandy. It's good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know what to say about it. It's a new thing. I mean, it's a brand. I've never seen anything like this.
Well, it's just like the last time with the sour beer / wine hybrids that we were tasting. We were tasting all this, and we were struggling to find little pigeonholes to put the things in. It's just good. It's tasty. And I think it's a success.
I do too. I've had lots of nights when I blended wine and beer internally. Just kind of,
and
it's wherever I was at.
And they might have, there might have been some sourness later on.
But what happens in New Orleans stays in New Orleans. That's what I always say.
And sometimes alongside the road.
But I digress.
Yes. So the verdict on all things nice is
it's very nice.
It's nice.
Yeah.
So there you go. Very tasty. We enjoyed it quite a bit. It was there was hardly any head on it. I don't know if we mentioned that, but the head dissipated fairly quickly. But we didn't miss it. It's very, very interesting, very enjoyable. I
don't think I've run into anyone that hasn't liked this I guess, call it a beer, but that hasn't liked this beer. It seems to be almost across the board that people like it. Even people that really don't per se like sour beer, they tend to enjoy this one.
And the second one that you sent is called The Temptation of Eve, which I guess is a play on the apple reference there.
So this beer, I ended up getting a hold of about 6 gallons of organic French pear and apple cider. And I really didn't have an idea what I wanted to do with it. So I pitched a mixed culture of Brettanomyces into it and let it ferment. And as I started thinking, I couldn't figure out what I was going to do with 6 gallons of Brett apple cider. So I split it into 2. One half of it went to make this beer. The other half is still sitting in a fermenter. I mixed it with orange blossom honey, and it's going to be next year's entry into the Mazer Cup, but that's something different. So this half, what I ended up doing with that 3 gallons of 100% Brettanomyces apple and pear cider is I got a hold of some just wheat DME, combined that with some water and I cooled it, hit it with some mixed sour culture, and when it was done fermenting, blended the two together.
But you didn't stop there.
No. So when I was cooling this extract beer, I added ginger into that, and then after I combined these two and racked it off into, I guess we'll call it a secondary vessel, that's when I added the lemon oil and the Calvados. So it got, for 5 gallons of beer, it got about half a bottle, so half a 750 of Calvados, which was a decently expensive experiment. I think the bottle was $55 or $60.
Now, what is Calvados for the uninitiated, including me?
Calvados is apple brandy that's aged in oak.
And and what form of ginger did you use?
I used just fresh grated ginger. Grated it right before I brewed.
Okay. And this was an interesting one. It was quite different from the first one, but we still enjoyed it. Are there any other details that we need to know before we go into the tasting on this one?
I don't think so. There's one thing that I guess I'll mention after the tasting when Steve talks about adding lemon juice. I think that was an interesting side note because I've done that too. But I'll let you get into the tasting with him, and then we can talk about that afterwards. Okay.
So that's a good way to let people know that to pay attention to the discussion on the lemon oil. So here we go back to Steve's house. Okay, we move on to the Temptation of Eve, and I'm going to take a reminder sample. So you really get the lemon.
Very lemony.
This is extra light DME, apple and pear cider, ginger.
Not going there.
We've been way down that road.
I've mined that shaft too long. Oh no, I haven't.
Stop that.
Okay.
Leave your shaft out of this.
I will. Down, shaft.
Just talk about shaft.
All right.
He's a bad mother.
He is.
Just talk about shaft. Okay. All right. Extra light DME, apple and pear cider, ginger, lemon oil, and Calvados. Is that what you said?
I don't know. I say that again.
Calvados. If it were Spanish, it would be Calvados probably. But you said Calvados.
That's how I say it, but what do I know? I'm sure there's a right way to say it.
You know more about the liquor cabinet than I do.
No, I just read phonetically.
but it's very good. It's less sour than the first one. Lots of lemon.
Lots of lemon.
I would say it smells lemony. I'm going to say lemon pledge, but that's going to sound bad. But it's got that kind of lemon. It's not a chemically lemon, but it's that kind of strength of lemon coming out of the top of it. And the flavor reminds me a lot of my grandmother's lemon meringue pie.
Yeah.
The filling, not the meringue part.
I agree with all of that, except for I never had your grandmother's lemon meringue pie, so I couldn't agree with that. But it does remind me very much of a lemon meringue pie or a lemon pudding, something like that. If I was to criticize this, which I'm going to, I would have used, as soon as you said lemon oil as an ingredient, I got it because I did taste a kind of oily. I almost think there is a little bit of a chemical taste to it, and I'm really not. It's very drinkable.
You're talking about my grandmother's pie?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, she was dusting as she was making it.
Well, yeah. I would have just used freshly squeezed like Meyer lemon juice, which is a really high quality lemon juice, and added that at some appropriate point, perhaps at bottling, because I really can get an oil which translates into a slightly chemical taste to me.
The tongue coating kind of?
A little bit, yeah. And also, when you said that, it really surprised me because this beer had quite a good head retention. And so when you said oil, I was thinking, oh, well, then why did it have any head retention? So maybe he just put a few drops in. I just really don't know that. But I think that based on what I do know, I would probably try this exact same thing again, but I would just add freshly squeezed lemon juice right at bottling and just see what happens.
It's very refreshing.
Yeah.
It's like it's sort of like lemonade with a bit of muscle, so to speak, because lemonade is thin, but this is not thin. It's got some mouthfeel to it, so it's a bit thicker, so to speak, than lemonade. And it's got a little bit of sourness, although not as much as the All Things Nice.
And then so I wonder how that would translate to a shandy. You know,
Well,
or the Barry Manilow song "Shandy."
Oh, Shandy.
Oh, Shandy.
And you okay. Well, it doesn't have the. I would contend that it doesn't have the malt of a shandy.
Okay.
What would you say?
I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Not that I'm an expert on shandies, but
Well,
yeah,
you've had more than one.
I've had maybe 20.
I'd say that classifies you as an expert.
Well, no.
So do we get any ginger? Slow down.
A little. There's a little. I wouldn't say that I would take a sip of this and go, "Oh my, there's a lot of ginger in that," but it's got a little bit of a spice note that I'm sure is coming from the ginger. And yes, so I'll say yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I'm used to. You gave me like 2 6-packs of your half a pound ginger beer.
It's the all day ginger.
And so I've been drinking that, so that's my standard of it's like the double IPA, of
it's an imperial ginger.
Yeah, exactly. Boy howdy. But so yes, I can taste some ginger in there, but it's more subtle, it's more tasteful, so to speak. Yours is
as it were.
Yours is a body ginger. But it's still delicious. So anyway, so it's a blend of 100% Brettanomyces cider, which is interesting. I'm not getting much Brett character, which no. if he used Brettanomyces in primary fermentation, a lot of times you don't get that quote unquote Brett character so much with the primary fermentation.
Don't those change over time? I mean, don't they?
It might get more funky over time.
Yeah. So
Could be.
As it ages, maybe that would come out more.
Could be.
Do we have a born on date?
No.
Well, then you can't sell this.
It's good though.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like it a lot.
So which do you like better?
Oh, gosh.
Yours are gone.
Mine are both gone, so I like them both the same. I actually think I like the cherry, the black cherry and raspberry one better. If you were say, I'm going to pour you one, which do you want? That's probably the one I'd choose. I just really enjoyed that quite a lot.
I think that the All Things Nice, the first one, has more kind of complexity. I would say. So I don't know. I think it would depend on the day. I think if I were sitting outside in the sun on a hot summer day, I think I would go toward the Temptation of Eve, the lemony one.
Well, yeah. And another way to phrase that question or to change it up would be, what would you pair these with?
Oh.
And I don't really know the answer yet, except for they'd both work well with Asian food. Spicy, like Thai or something like that would be really nice.
Definitely.
And I think they'd both work well with German food.
Oh, yeah. Like a bratwurst.
Yeah.
Especially All Things Nice would go well with the bratwurst.
Absolutely it would.
Think lemony. I think maybe if you wanted to double up on your lemon, maybe lemon meringue pie with the lemon beer.
I was going to say, these would both be great dessert beers, meaning pairing them with desserts.
Right.
They'd be terrific, either one of them. So, very successful. I really like these quite a lot, and I'm going to go way out on a limb here and tell you that from my memory, I like these better than the
wine
beer
ones?
And wine mixes.
I think these are less challenging or more approachable, I think.
Yeah.
Although I did enjoy the first ones.
I did too. I just kind of, they just popped into my head, and I really think this is very successful.
I think the first ones I enjoyed tasting, and it would be something that I would bring out every once in a great while, maybe, as kind of like to reset some switches in the palate, so to speak.
Yeah.
These two I would drink on a more regular basis.
Yeah, I'd pay $1 for that.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any profit margin in that. I'd buy that for $1.
I'd buy that for $1.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, James.
So there you go. Again, a very tasty beer, very different from the first one. This one had more of a head on it that stuck around for a bit longer, and it was a yellow. It looked like a lemon beer. So what say you about Steve's comments about the lemon oil?
I agree with him in that it is a bit reminiscent of Lemon Pledge. There's no two ways about that. Now, I don't think it's off-putting by any stretch of the imagination. I think if you would use a lot of it, it would get a bit caustic. But the reason that I went to using citrus oil in beers is because adding zest for me just didn't do it. I didn't get. I think, and that's what you're looking for too with the zest, is you're looking for the oil from, the skin of the fruit. And I've added a lot of zest to, 5-gallon batches, sometimes up to a pound of zest.
Wow.
Without getting that much an input in, I didn't boil it. When I was adding the zest, I would add it probably at 180 Fahrenheit during cooling. And I just couldn't seem to get past that, get it past, I guess, the initial aggressive fermentation. It would smell great in the fermenter, but afterwards it just didn't have that same aroma.
So how much lemon oil did you add, and when was it added?
It was added in the secondary, which I think if you would add the zest in the secondary, you might get a better aroma. It's just filtering out the zest would be the thing. But I think I added, in this particular beer, for 5.5 gallons, I added 2 ounces. So not very much, 2 fluid ounces. Not very much at all.
Well, it certainly had an impact on the aroma and the flavor.
And I think it's great as far as being able to imbue that lemon character that's just not citric acid, because that's what I found that you get if you add citrus juice, especially if it's strong. Orange juice tends to not be as bad, but I had a grapefruit juice to one beer that just came out unfortunately sour, and not in a good way.
So you did a primary fermentation with Brettanomyces.
Yes.
Was it after that primary fermentation, before the blending of everything else, was the beer, or I guess I should say product, was it?
Yeah, that's probably a good word.
Was it funky like Brettanomyces, or was it more of a kind of a clean Brettanomyces fermentation?
No, and that was another good point that you made is, when you primary with Brett, you're not going to get that big Brett character, we'll say classic Brett character, because your primary yeast is Brett, and there's no other yeast to make the esters that the Brett's going to esterify into, like caprylic acid and things like that give you that classic Brettanomyces, we'll say, character.
It was a tasty beer. It was very refreshing, and as I said in the tasting, it had a bit more substance than, say, a shandy, in my opinion. Shandies can be, kind of watered down tasting or watered down feeling on the tongue, to me at least. Not all of them are, but in my experience, some that I've had. But this was more substantial, and I guess that might be from the dry malt extract.
Yeah, I haven't brewed many sour beers with malt extract, but I think it's a fantastic way to do it. It just doesn't take as long, especially if you're looking for a simple base. You're going to end up with something that's relatively indistinguishable from all grain.
Now, do you think that this would get? It wasn't as sour as the first one. Do you think that it would become more sour over time?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, I think if anything, you'll get some muting of the lemon and ginger essence. I mean, I think the ginger you get mostly, up front as a bit of a sweetness, and then at the end, a little bit more of I don't want to call it a burn or a hotness, but you get that spiciness from the ginger. I would think that would go away to some extent, maybe not completely, but to some extent.
Yeah, I agree. I think spices, at least in my experience, spices tend to fade over time. Which is sometimes a good thing.
yeah, absolutely.
If you brew a beer, as I have had in the past, that turn out to be kind of like potpourri in a glass, being able to age them over the long period of time is beneficial. So yeah, both of these were good. I think they were successful, as we said, and it just proves that. If you're willing to step outside the bounds or the boundaries of what's considered traditional, sometimes you can come up with something brand new that's really good.
I appreciate that. I think that probably even since last time that we spoke, my brewing philosophy has changed. Brewing sour beer philosophy, and we'll say, has changed a bit. Where I'm looking at these sour beers more from a foundational standpoint rather than an end product to build flavors on, which I think is a neat concept if you can pull it off.
The last time we talked, you were exploring professional opportunities in brewing. Is there any news from that you can talk about?
Oh, there's news. It's not good news, but it's news nonetheless. The guys that I was getting ready to do something with, I don't want to say backed out, but we came to an agreement that it probably wasn't the right time for them. You know, they had been in business for about a year, and I think they did the right thing as far as concentrating on, we'll just say, crossing all their T's and dotting all their I's, increasing their distribution, producing more beer, and being successful instead of, dipping their toes. I think I used that expression before, but dipping their toes into a lot of different styles of beer. I don't hold any type of grudge, or I'm not upset about it. Sure, I would have liked to have been doing something on the commercial side, and I'm still looking for someone to do that with. It's just, the Pittsburgh area, as far as breweries go, it's a pretty small community. So if they haven't been interested by now, they're probably not going to be.
Well, there's still time. I mean,
Oh yeah.
And the more that you play around with this kind of thing at home, and kind of gain your confidence on this scale, the more you'll bring to the table if and when it does happen.
Definitely, I agree with that. Just getting out there in the local craft beer community, like I have over the past maybe year and a half or 2 years, you meet a lot of people. And, you give beers to them, they taste the beers, they like them. They might not really be thinking about what they're going to do with that at this point in time. But later on, that may come full circle. We'll see. I'm in no hurry. I'm going to be brewing beer at home, no matter what.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think so.
That's the way to look at it. Well, this has been fun, and I hope that you continue to experiment with these hybrids, because eventually, that's going to be the wave of the future, I think, because people are going to be more and more breweries and more and more people enjoying good beer, and I think that it's time for us to kind of expand our horizons and start looking in places that we haven't before.
Oh, and there's plenty of different things that can be done. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. With all the different, like strains of Brettanomyces that are out there, with all the different fermentation techniques that people have and have been promoting, we aren't reaching a level where there's no more types of beer to be brewed. People just have to think differently about the beer that they are brewing, and that's one thing that I'm trying to do.
There you go. Well, keep us posted.
Absolutely, James.
Thanks, James.
We'll see you soon.
Well, thanks again to James. I hope he continues to experiment and to brew outside the box, so to speak. And it's fun to experience tasty brews that challenge our expectations. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form at basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. You can check out our support link where you can throw a couple of bucks into the tip jar by subscribing financially to our podcasts. Be sure to check out our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits. You can find them all on our site. You can check out our Basic Brewing shirts in the store as well. You can see a listing of the fine folks across the country who sell our DVDs on basicbrewing.com, and if there isn't a vendor in your area, you can order them online in our online shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We greatly appreciate the support there. Our featured products this week that were purchased through the link are Deep, Freediving Renegade Science, and What the Ocean Tells Us About Ourselves, and Fluker Labs Eco-Clean All-Natural Reptile Waste Remover. That's a new one. And there is a bonus item this week. It's a game called Sheriff of Nottingham. 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 Listen to last week's show if you want to find out what I'm babbling about. Thanks again, everybody. And remember, I can't tell who bought what, so no worries there. Just click on the Amazon.com logo on our site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping. We greatly appreciate your support. And don't forget, you can also join the American Homebrewers Association and subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine through the associate links on basicbrewing.com. And thanks to everybody who continues to do that as well. That's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio on our website is provided by Kelly Dodson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. So long.